What if Anakin could see past Jedi like Aang in Avatar? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Anakin watches Ahsoka depart the Jedi Temple for the last time, his heart sinking as she disappears from view. Although Ahsoka made it sound like he should have been proud, all he can feel is sadness and disappointment. Part of him knows that this is the Jedi Council's fault, but another feels more like his failure to defend her. All these thoughts run through his mind as he heads back to his quarters and lies there alone. The longer he remains, the more questions arise. What will he do now? Should he take another apprentice? And how can he truly let go of those he loves? Eventually, he decides to sit up and take a few breaths. It helps, and he continues. Anakin's never been big on meditating, but after everything that's happened, he continues with breathing exercises. He doesn't know how long he stays there, but feels a warm presence brush up against him. Anakin. His eyes shoot open and stumbles back as he sees the old Jedi Master standing before him. He looks just how Anakin remembered, with long hair, a strong body, and a kind smile. But he is now transparent. What? What is the meaning of this? You've grown since the last time I saw you, in more ways than one. I was wondering if you would ever discover this power. Power? What kind of trick is this? No tricks, I promise. This is the power of the living force. Something only the greatest force users can harness. I've never heard of any Jedi who can do this. No, I wouldn't expect you to, my boy. This is a power long forgotten by the Jedi, but one that remains as potent. Life is an illusion, Anakin, and so is death. Do not think of it as losing someone, simply another part of it. The Jedi tell you that those who die return to the living force. They do. And from the force, they remain. They're part of the galaxy. But those who understand the ways of the living force can reach out to them and ask for their wisdom. I don't understand. I don't expect you to. It took me decades of study to truly realize my abilities. I can only stay here for a brief time, but if you wish to learn, travel to Dagobah. Suddenly, Qui-Gon begins to levitate as his form begins to dissipate. He breaks apart into thousands of particles and leaves Anakin alone to ponder those words. At first, Anakin wonders whether he's imagined all of this. He goes about his days normally, trying to forget what happened. There's a strange tingling feeling at the back of his mind, as if a doorway in his head was just unlocked and opened before him. It leaves Anakin with a strange sense of calm, but also a new hunger for this knowledge. The Jedi Temple now appears smaller and more confused than ever, while Dagobah calls to him more and more, until finally, Anakin announces he wishes to take a leave of absence. Although unprecedented, the Council is sympathetic to Anakin after the loss of his apprentice. With their permission, Anakin hops onto his starfighter and flies off to the Dagobah system. When Anakin arrives, he finds no sign of life, just a vast expanse of swamplands. Instead of exploring, Anakin feels himself pulled towards it. All around him, he hears voices calling to him and welcoming him. He takes this as a positive sign and decides to sit down and begin meditating. Soon he feels a familiar warm feeling. Welcome, Anakin. I was worried you wouldn't arrive. I couldn't stay away after everything you told me. Now, why did you bring me here? What makes this place so important to training? It's what you see around you, my boy. I'm sure the Jedi have told you that everything you see here is part of the Force. But that is not just a saying. The Force ties all beings together, and nothing can separate that, even death. To learn about this power, you must go where the Force is strong. Everything you see here is just one swamp, one organism, like the entire galaxy. Listen closely, not with your senses, but with the Force, and you will find the branches that link us to the Force. Now, are you ready? Anakin nods his head, and Qui-Gon smiles. He suddenly extends his hand out, and from the bog behind them, a box slowly emerges from the ground and drops to Anakin's lap. Inside, Anakin finds the stranger's helmet. Qui-Gon orders Anakin to put it on, and once he does, the Jedi feels all his senses disappear as he is left in total darkness. For a moment, Anakin panics, but Qui-Gon tells him to take a deep breath. When Anakin calms down, the former Jedi Master begins instructing him. This training is nothing like Anakin's ever experienced. Without his senses, all Anakin has is the Force to guide him. Qui-Gon sends him all across the swamp, spending days doing tasks to strengthen that bond. He maneuvers through mud pits, caves, and mountain passes with only the Force to guide him. He learns to use the Force to detect animals, whether they be predators hunting him or prey for him to eat. Entire days are spent in silence along hazardous areas like boiling geysers, treacherous bogs, and high mountains for no other reason than to feel the Force around him. But the results speak for themselves. As soon Anakin does not even need to remove his helmet to move freely. Only then does Qui-Gon teach Anakin to connect with the Jedi long past, but warns him that they will test him. As Anakin sits down and closes his eyes, he feels the energy around him swirling and merging into a shape. Even with his helmet, Anakin can see the form. It is a young Mon Calamari who bows respectfully to him.
Greetings, Master Skywalker. I am Nadar Veb, a former apprentice of Kit Fisto. I sense great anger in you.
Anakin is surprised to see such a young Jedi standing before him. Before this war started, I wished to prevent those I love from dying. I vowed to never lose them. To do so requires strength, but these days I feel like I'm not strong enough.
I once valued strength more than anything as well, Anakin. I think you've heard of what happened on Vasek.
He remembers the mission report and feels a twang of regret at what he heard. Seeing Master Fisto's signature smile disappear as he explained the loss of his student, he now understands that pain more than ever.
The pain you feel now is something I feel as well. To watch my friends die at the hands of that monster. I thought it required me to become just as ferocious and bloodthirsty as Grievous. But in the end, all it accomplished was this: end my master's grief.
But to defeat Grievous requires getting strong, to face him, and show you're not afraid.
I once mistook bravery for strength. But ask yourself this, Master. Are you prepared to face Grievous despite the consequences? Will you throw your life away for the sake of victory, knowing the consequences to those you love?
Anakin's first instinct is to answer yes, to remind him that in war, victory is what matters. But then he pauses, thinking of Padme and Obi-Wan. He imagines their reactions to his death and finds himself hesitating. Then he shakes his head.
I offer you this wisdom. True strength comes not from achievements and victories. To unlock the powers of the Force requires you to understand what truly matters, and stick to it.
As the vision fades, Anakin feels a warmth in his chest growing as he feels a new understanding of the Force. But the energy around him is far from still. It continues to swirl around, and after a few minutes, retakes shape. This time, the form is much smaller.
Skywalker, what took you so long?
It's good to see you again, Master.
I don't think I need to tell you my story. You know how I ended up here.
I know. I'm sorry about that, Master.
Don't blame yourself. We all made mistakes there, including me.
You? But you did everything right. You prevented the Separatists from getting the Nexus route coordinates, at the cost of your own life.
I did. I trusted half that information to Tarkin. At the time, I trusted him because he knew the cost of war if such data fell into the wrong hands. But I ignored the darkness in him. I think you can see that now.
Anakin feels his fingers clench into a fist. The memory of Tarkin's role in Ahsoka's trial was still fresh, especially as he had ensured she got anything but a fair trial. Piel notices this and shakes his head.
He would sacrifice anyone and anything for the sake of his goals, even the rule of law. He mistakes fear and obedience for peace and justice. That is why I told Ahsoka to give my half of the Nexus route only to the Jedi Council. I offer you this wisdom, Anakin. Some people are your friends today, and your foes tomorrow. To master the Force requires your full concentration. You cannot be worrying whether someone will put a knife in your back.
The Jedi Master bows his head one more time before disappearing into a cloud of dust. Rather than vanish entirely, the cloud continues to whirl around in a circle as a new shape takes form. This time, the form grows in size, becoming 4 times as large as Piel, and morphing into a hulking shape. Anakin immediately feels his anger brewing. He knows this Jedi all too well, especially after hearing the reports of Captain Rex.
Krell! Now is that any way to greet someone offering you advice?
No. It's how to greet a traitor who turned his back on the Jedi.
Come now. You truly think I'm the only one who had doubts about the Jedi? No. I think you're thinking some of the same things I felt.
Anakin feels a growl building in his throat, but not because he disagrees with him. Quite the opposite. After seeing the debacle that happened in Ahsoka's trial and their failures to deal with Darth Maul and Onderon, Anakin has been doubting them more and more. No, but that doesn't mean I would betray those who trust me.
So you would simply follow them and allow the betrayal to happen? Just because the Jedi gave me their trust does not mean they deserve mine. This war has caused much destruction, but it also revealed the failures of many. The Jedi, Republic, and Senate have all finally revealed the rot they have hidden for years. I would rather betray the galaxy than let the galaxy betray me.
And where did that get you?
Teaching you, it seems. Something you would not have if you did not decide to go beyond what the Jedi claimed was allowed. Is that not a betrayal as well?
It's different.
No, it isn't. Betrayal is betrayal. But I offer you this wisdom. To master this power requires you to question what you know and take a hard look at things. Only then can you understand the powers beyond. Now I wish you good luck in your trials ahead.
As Krell's vision fades, the energy particles all swirl and vanish around him, disappearing into the air, but their words weigh heavily on Anakin's soul. With that, the Force pulses through him, stronger now, more vivid than ever. He opens his eyes, looking inward. The faces of those he loves flash in his mind. Padme, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, reminding himself of those who truly matter. Those he knows he can trust no matter what. They are the one certainty, the one thing he truly knows. The air around him begins to hum, the wind picking up. Blue energy crackles at his fingertips. The floor beneath him vibrates, dust rising as the force around him builds into a crescendo. Suddenly, with a sharp exhale, Anakin releases the energy he's been gathering. The force erupts outward in a massive shockwave, sending trees shattering and rocks bursting, and the waters around him rise in a million droplets as Anakin rises from the ground alongside them. Anakin extends one hand towards the forest, and the debris and water fly with him, lashing in the air in a set of vicious tentacles, shattering the trees around and rocks that get in their way. With just a flick of his wrist, all the debris shatters, falling back to the ground in 1,000 pieces. He closes his eyes again, reaching deeper into the Force. Suddenly, he reverses the flow, sending the fragments back together. The statue reforms, whole and unbroken. Anakin's eyes glow with the power surging through him. He feels invincible, as though nothing is beyond his reach. For the first time, he fully grasps the true extent of the Force, its balance, its chaos, its endless potential. But as he finishes setting everything back in place, he feels a faint tingling in the back of his mind. It's similar to the power he's been feeling when the Jedi appear. But this does not feel like a warm caress, more like a cold touch. It is a dark, cold ripple that sends shivers down his spine. And suddenly, a figure appears behind him. The figure steps forward, the darkness peeling away to reveal a face he doesn't recognize, but a presence he has felt before. Malevolent. Ancient.
You are stronger than I expected, Skywalker. Do you feel it now? The power coursing through your veins.
Who are you?
Me. I am but a seeker of the same knowledge.
A seeker? So you're not here to offer wisdom?
Wisdom? No, nothing as useless as that. I have something more valuable. Information. This war, the losses you faced, and the destruction this galaxy has suffered all come from an ancient wrong that needs to be righted. All caused by a fool who began thinking beyond his station.
Who is this fool? Plagueis reaches out with one bony finger and touches Anakin's head. Suddenly, a rush of memories run through his mind, as if he's reliving an entire life in a few moments. And then he drops to his knees. That is impossible.
I'm afraid it's not only possible, it's happened. The question remains, will you end it?
Oh, I'll end it. But with you? Not a chance. After everything you've shown me, you must think I'm a bigger fool than you were for trusting Palpatine.
I do not recall asking your permission.
His finger prods Anakin's forehead again, but this time he feels a surge of dark energy flowing through him, like a needle into his brain. Anakin screams in pain and doubles over, nearly falling to his knees. Plagueis advances towards him, his dark shadows becoming larger and more malevolent as he approaches. The energy pulses around him and surrounds Anakin, threatening to wrap around him as the Jedi feels his strength fading. But then he recalls the lessons of the Masters reminding him to look deep within himself, to know what is absolute truth and what to doubt. Suddenly, the dark energy retreats as Anakin rises to his feet and channels the Force through a scream. The dark energy shatters apart into 1,000 pieces. Anakin falls to his knees, breathing heavily, but he has little time to rest. The memories that Plagueis had sent to him make one thing clear. The Sith Lord is out there and has infiltrated the highest office. Without another word, Anakin hurries back to his starship and flies off. He looks at the date and sees that several months have now passed instead of weeks. And as he powers it up, he receives transmissions of attacks on Coruscant. By the time he arrives, Anakin finds the battle raging around him as the skies about Coruscant are turned into a massive war, as an armada of CIS ships trade fire with Republic warships, unleashing barrages of turbo-laser fire. Anakin's starfighter drives right into the fray, barely getting anyone's attention, at least until he begins blasting through swarms of starfighters. Dozens of them seem to break apart, even without Anakin using his weapon. Instead, he uses the Force to shatter them to pieces. As his starfighter speeds into battle, Anakin reaches out his hand. Without warning, the next volley of turbo-laser fire from a separatist warship is redirected mid-air, twisting backward and slamming into the enemy ship that fired it. The explosion sends shockwaves through the fleet. Anakin's ship barrels through the chaos as he speeds through the ruins of droid fighters. With his hand, he lifts up the debris and sends it flying towards the Republic fleet, but not to strike them. Instead, they form a protective barrier against the fleet. He turns his attention to the invisible hand, directing his starfighter to the hull of the flagship. Squads of droids hurry to stop him, but Anakin's lightsaber seems to be alive as he slices through droids with ease, barely noticing them as he walks over them. As he enters, Anakin closes his eyes and searches within the forms for signs of life. He eventually finds one away from the bridge and towards the ship's quarters. Anakin makes his way over there until he sees a set of blast doors and makes a punching motion. Suddenly the doors explode inward, sending smoke and debris across the control room. Dooku stands at the far end, watching as Anakin strides through the smoke, lightsaber ignited. Palpatine is seated beside him. For a moment, Dooku raises his own saber, but Anakin raises a hand. "You don't need to die today, Dooku. I know the truth about Palpatine. This war ends now." Dooku's face shifts, and although his lightsaber is ready, Anakin's presence is overwhelming. This is nothing like the inexperienced Jedi he fought on Geonosis. There is something infinitely more powerful about him, and he hesitates. Slowly, he deactivates his lightsaber and bows his head. "Leave, Dooku, before I change my mind." Dooku nods and rushes out, retreating from the room while Anakin's attention turns to Palpatine. Although he appears calm, the worry in his eyes betrays him.
Anakin, an excellent ruse. You've done well. Now we must—
"No more lies, Palpatine." Anakin steps forward, his lightsaber blazing. The dark side pulses through the room, but it's not just Palpatine's presence Anakin feels. It's something deeper, something darker. "You've manipulated me. The Jedi. This entire war. But it ends today." Palpatine's face darkens, but before he can speak, Anakin lunges, swinging his lightsaber with brutal precision. Palpatine raises his hands, the bonds snapping as he moves to block the strike with the Force. While he redirects it to the head of the seat, the sheer intensity causes him to stumble back. As Anakin is about to strike again, the dark energy twists and shifts. A ghostly figure appears, towering behind Palpatine. Anakin recognizes the shape and growls. Palpatine's expression shifts to fear as he screams in terror. Standing before him is the spirit of Darth Plagueis.
"You thought you could destroy me, Sidious.
Master, no, it can't be.
You failed, Sidious. It's time I reclaim what is mine."
Before Anakin can react, Plagueis' spirit descends on Palpatine. The Chancellor screams as his body convulses, clawing at his face as he writhers and falls to the ground. And then his eyes glow in an unnatural light. The body of Palpatine rises. The voice is unmistakably Plagueis'.
"I have returned, Skywalker, and now I will show you the true power of the dark side."
The room crackles with dark energy, coursing towards Anakin, who raises his lightsaber and blocks the attack. He channels his Force powers to defend against the attack. The dark energy reflects off his lightsaber, tearing deep gouges across the room behind him. Dark tendrils of Force energy lash out, crackling across the floor and ceiling like lightning. But Anakin is already moving, slashing at the tentacles as he advances towards him. His lightsaber slashes down at him, but Plagueis raises his hand and catches the lightsaber with the Force. Suddenly, his crimson blade roars to life and thrusts at him. Anakin flips back and lands on his feet. The Force swirls around him, sending a blast of blinding white energy towards Plagueis. The Dark Lord stumbles, his form flickering as it strikes his side, but he moves aside. Behind him, a gaping hole is burned where his blast strikes. Anakin reaches into the hole and summons the bits of metal and smoldering ash with the Force. With a flick of his wrist, he throws them at Plagueis. The Sith Lord moves with surprising speed, dodging the debris that follows after him. He initially circles Anakin, but then whirls and rushes towards him, leaving the debris following after him. Anakin's eyes widen as they rush toward him, but he clenches his fists and redirects them as they flash harmlessly past him. But now Plagueis is close enough that his lightsaber flashes as it meets Anakin's weapon. The blow sends sparks flashing and the Force energies ripple around them. Anakin tries to press his offense, pushing him back and swinging his lightsaber in quick arcs. The Dark Lord is no slouch though, and meets each attack in rapid succession, using his superior height and reach to avoid any swings that get through. When one blow passes harmlessly, Plagueis presses forward and snarls. The dark energy around him morphs into a vortex of shadows that lash out at Anakin, striking at his arms and legs, tearing half a dozen cuts across his body. He hisses in pain and jumps back. When they prepare to attack again, Anakin spins his lightsaber and slashes them apart. Despite the pain, Anakin fights through it, feeling his anger brewing and his attacks growing more aggressive as he swings at the Dark Lord. But none of these hit anything. Plagueis laughs and then thrusts his lightsaber against his cheek and stumbles back.
I can see now why Palpatine saw such potential in you. Your anger is strong.
Anakin snarls and wants to launch another flurry of attacks, but then calms himself. Instead, he closes his eyes, reaching out for the Force. He opens his eyes, now glowing brilliant blue, and with a deep breath, he channels the full strength of the Force. Anakin leaps forward, his lightsaber clashing with Plagueis' dark energy. Every strike sends shockwaves through the room. The Jedi's movements are faster, more precise than ever before. Plagueis begins to see the full power of the Jedi, but doesn't back down, as he counters and throws himself in a flurry of attacks. Their lightsabers meet in a series of brutal strikes that leave Anakin better off as the Dark Lord suffers a wound on his waist. Pressing the attack, Anakin slams his fist onto the ground, sending massive chunks of metal that Anakin hurls at him. These knock Plagueis back like a ragdoll, but he desperately summons a flurry of tentacles that wrap around Anakin and hold him firm. For a moment, this seems to work as his advance comes to a halt. But it's only a momentary pause as Anakin unleashes a surge of Force energy that breaks the void of dark light and thrusts his lightsaber into Plagueis' chest. The Dark Lord screams as his body begins to crumble. The dark energy holding him together dissipates. Soon, nothing is left as Anakin looks over the remains and leaves the ship. His actions quickly turn the tide of battle, but there is still chaos as many wonder what happened to Palpatine. Thankfully, Count Dooku surrenders to the Republic forces and testifies that Palpatine is the true mastermind in the war. He presents previous recordings that show their dealings. This causes a brief political crisis that ends with Padmé's election, thanks in no small part to Anakin's support. With her election, they begin the process of reforming the Republic, with the first course of action having Dooku negotiate a surrender of the CIS. Meanwhile, Anakin takes his teachings back to the Jedi, who are shocked to learn about these powers. All except for Yoda, who has already begun studying similar ideas. Seeing the power that Anakin possesses, he steps down as head of the Jedi Order in favor of Anakin, who begins to spread his teachings. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.